Thank you for listening to ShulchanAruch.com.
Covering the Mezonos foods that are on the table prior to saying Kiddush. So you're saying Kiddush either Friday night or Shabbos day, and you have your challahs on the table which are covered, and as well there's some dips and other salads already on the table waiting to be eaten, and it includes a Mezonos salad such as a pasta salad. Must the pasta salad, must the Mezonos be covered as well, or only the challahs have to be covered? Likewise, what about in a case that you're saying Kiddush and only eating Mezonos afterwards? There are no challahs on the table. And after you say Kiddush, you plan on eating a piece of cake, a pastry, or other Mezonos product, and the question is asked, must that Mezonos product be covered at the time or not? This is very common by Kiddushim after Shabbos davening of Shachris, where they have crackers and other Mezonos on the table, no bread. Do you have to cover the crackers? Do you have to cover the Mezonos? So to properly answer this question, we must analyze the Jewish custom and tradition regarding covering the challahs. What are the reasons recorded for doing so? And then begin applying as to whether this should apply to Mezonos products as well or not. So the idea, the custom of covering the challahs both by Friday night and Shabbos day before you say Kiddush is recorded in the Talmud in the Gemara in Psachim 100a and brought in the Shulchan Aruch chapter 271 of Orach Chaim regarding Friday night and 289 regarding Shabbos day, that upon making Kiddush one is required to cover the bread. Now what is the reason behind this halacha? So we find recorded in the Poskim 3 different reasons for this halacha, for this minhag, and there are ramifications between them as we will see. Reason number 1 that's mentioned in the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch in chapter 271, halacha 10 and 17, based on the Magen Avram and based on the Rishonim and the Gaonim, found in the Sheilos of Achai Gaon, Hagos Maimonides, and Tosfos and Psachim, that the reason for why we must cover the bread, and we are accustomed to cover the bread before Kiddush, is for the honor of Shabbos, Kveit Shabbos, to show that the food is brought on the table for the sake of honoring Shabbos. Although we eat a meal every single day, on Shabbos the meal has to be eaten for the sake of honoring and respecting Shabbos Kiddush. And therefore the halach is that we need to show that the food was brought on the table for the sake of Shabbos. How is that done? So back in the day it was done by not bringing food into the table until after you said Kiddush and sanctified the Shabbos. Today that we already have the foods on the table, this is accomplished by covering the challahs, which makes it as if it's not there. And after you sanctify the Shabbos and Kiddush, you then remove the covering, which shows as if now you brought it to the table in honor of Shabbos, which you just finished sanctifying. That's the first reason. The second reason recorded in the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch 271-17 and brought in the Taz and Mishnah Berurah, Torah Sefer HaTruma, Hagos Maimonides, and Tosfos, is that it's in commemoration of the man that used to fell from heaven when we were in the desert. Just like the man rested between 2 coverings of dew, one on top and one on bottom, so too we have a cloth on top of the challahs and a cloth under the challahs to commemorate the man that had a double covering. The third reason brought down for covering the challahs is recorded, interestingly, not in the laws of Kiddush of the Alter Rebbe, but in chapter 299, halacha 14 regarding Havdalah, and 473-44 regarding the night of the Seder. And this is based on the ruling of the Ramah, the Magen Avram, and the Tur, and the Iger, and other Rishonim, that it's done in order to prevent shaming the challahs. The halacha is brought regarding Havdalah. You're making Havdalah, you have challahs on the table, you plan on eating malava malka right afterwards, you have to cover the challahs. Why? The first 2 reasons here don't apply. Here the reason recorded is because it's shameful to say a blessing over the wine before you say a blessing over hamaitzi, and therefore to cover the shame of the challah, we cover it with a cloth. Now why is it shameful? What's shameful about it? According to halacha, you're not allowed to eat bread till you make Kiddush and Havdalah. You see, in the laws of Birchas Hanenin, it's recorded that when you have 2 foods in front of you, one being wine and the second being bread, and you want to eat and drink both of them now, you have to precede hamaitzi. Hamaitzi is more of an important blessing. Now, regarding Kiddush and Havdalah, it happens to be you can't, because you have to make Kiddush first. So you're forced to precede the Hagafen. But nonetheless, since this is overriding the usual laws of precedence, we therefore cover the challahs to cover its shame of not being preceded as normally required. The practical ramification between these reasons are our question of Mezonos. There are also other ramifications that we will not deal with here. Must Mezonos foods be covered as well when they are on the table? So according to the first reason, that the purpose is to honor Shabbos, there's room to learn that it should be covered, as you want to show the Mezonos was brought to the table for the honor of Shabbos. On the other hand, you can argue and say this only applies to bread, which is the main part of the meal. The second reason certainly shouldn't apply, as the concept of the man is only with bread. However, according to the third reason, that we want to hide the shame of the bread, then seemingly this would apply likewise to Mezonos foods. As by Mezonos as well, the halacha is that Mezonos of wheat and barley precede the blessing of Agafen. And according to some poskim, even Mezonos made of spelt, rye, and oats also receive precedence over wine. So in order to hide the Mezonos from its shame of being preceded, it should be covered, just like by Hamaitzi. After the analyzation, practically, what do the poskim have to say? How do they rule? So practically, we find this matter is debated amongst the poskim. Some poskim rule that the Mezonos foods on the table are to be covered. Some say that this is due to the first reason, you want to show it came to the table to covet Shabbos, and therefore it should be covered even if you have challahs on the table, which are also covered. Nonetheless, you should also cover the Mezonos. So rules the Pri Megadim in 271 Eshel Avram 7. Other poskim, however, negate this understanding and say the concept of Kfei Shabbos is only by bread, but nonetheless, I say based on the third reason that you want to hide the shame of the bread, so too you have to cover the Mezonos to hide its shame, especially if you're eating the Mezonos right after Kiddush. To fulfill Kiddush and Makam Suda, then you have to cover the Mezonos just like you cover the bread. So rules the Levushe Mordechai in 146, Kitz Shulchan Aruch 55 Halacha 5, and other poskim. However, other poskim rule that no, none of these reasons apply by Mezonos and they only apply by bread. As ideally, there's no embarrassment here to precede the wine, as you have to according to halacha. It's just that bread is so chashuv and it's the staple of the meal that we do it a favor and we cover it. However, we're not going to extend that favor in chumrah even to Mezonos foods. So rules Birchas Habayis in 4650, Shutav Akiva Yosef Schlesinger, Tamim and Hagim and other poskim. Practically, how should we rule? So practically, if there are challahs on the table which are already covered, then you do not have to also cover the Mezonos foods that are on the table, as is a simple implication of the Alter Rebbe in 271:17, that even when other foods are on the table, only the challahs are covered. However, if you plan on eating the Mezonos after Kiddush for Kiddush b'Makam Suda, then you should be stringent like the first approach and cover the Mezonos, as it's very difficult to differentiate in the wording of the poskim between the shame of bread and the shame of Mezonos, if in truth both bread and Mezonos precede wine, and therefore the Mezonos should be covered. However, this only applies to Mezonos of wheat or barley. However, Mezonos of spelt, rye, and oats, being that many poskim, including the Alter Rebbe, rule that it does not precede wine, therefore it also does not need to be covered when you say the bracha of Agafen. So to summarize, if there are challahs on the table, you don't have to cover anything else. There's no challahs on the table, and you plan on eating a Mezonos afterwards, cover the Mezonos. Now, does a regular plastic see-through bag suffice? Let's say you have crackers in a plastic bag, or you have pastries in a see-through lining. Is that considered a covering? The answer is yes. This suffices. You don't have to put a covering that blocks your ability to see the food.
Thank you for listening to ShulchanAruchHarav.com. Our free services of making Torah knowledge available to the public depends on donors like you. Please help us continue our work through making even a small contribution at ShulchanAruchHarav.com under the Daily Halacha Dedication section or in the subscription page. Also, check out our online courses and many sefarim available for purchase that will both enhance your Torah knowledge and help support our work.